Hello again, everybody. Andre Khachaturian of NESN.com here with Matt Perino of UFC.com. It's the NESN.com UFC podcast. Matt, so much has happened this week in the UFC. We have a lot to talk about. I'm ready to dive into this. It's not wasting the time. Let's dive right into this.
Left and right. Let's go.
All right. Yesterday, which was Wednesday, Tyron Woodley announces on FS1 that he's going to be fighting Demian Maia at UFC 214, which will make it, by the way, probably the best card of the year. We got 3 title fights with Jones and Cormier, Cyborg and Tanya Evinger, which we'll get into in a little bit. And, of course, Woodley and Maia. Woodley, he's defended the belt twice, once via tie and once via victory against the same guy, Stephen Thompson. Now here he is fighting against Demian Maia, who has the longest winning streak in the division. So what are your thoughts going into this bout?
It's been a long time coming for Demian Maia. I mean, this is a guy that's been super hot, one of the best guys in the welterweight division, just been plodding forward, trying to earn this title shot with win after win. You think back to his performance against Carlos Condit, submitting him in the first round like it was nothing. No one does that to Carlos Condit. I mean, that guy's known for being in wars. A lot of people going into that fight thought that he was going to really give Demian Maia problems standing up, and Demian Maia took him right down, submitted him. It was kind of startling to watch. It was really amazing. So finally, after all of this time, we get Demian Maia versus Tyron Woodley. But now that he's at the title, it's tough. It's a tough draw for him. He's turning around pretty quickly from UFC 211. He's facing Tyron Woodley, who I think is a tough matchup for him, only in the sense that Woodley is a wrestler. He started out as a wrestler, so it's going to be tough for Maia to take him down. He's powerful. He's strong. He's got huge legs. He'll be able to maybe utilize some takedown defense, keep it standing. But you know what? Demian Maia has just wanted his shot, and he's finally got his shot. UFC 214, are you kidding me? Jones and Cormier would have been enough for me, but we got one hell of a card.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. And you look at the way Woodley fought his last fight against Stephen Thompson, very tactical affair. He was really taking his time, searching for his spots. Do you see him taking that kind of an approach against Maia, or do you see him more taking chances, trying to get him to the ground and whatnot?
It'll depend. I'm wondering, Tyron seems very, very confident in this matchup. Every time he's talked about Demian Maia, it's almost like, you get a sense off of him that he knows how this one's going to play out. So I think that, he's going to be confident. He's known. I mean, you go back and watch that Robbie Lawler fight. He had no problems coming right across, slinging some big bombs with Robbie. We know how that one ended. He's going to test Demian Maia's chin, I think. I think Maia likes to kind of get in close, get in your face, and against Tyron Woodley, that's exactly what you don't want to do. So I think Woodley's very confident in this fight. I think he's showcased, in his time in the UFC, he's beaten some top-level guys, and he's a tough out. I think it's going to be a really great title fight on a night of good title fights.
Yeah, I mean, Woodley literally called out Maia. He said, if he wants to fight me, call me, and he did. So we're going to get that fight. We're going to have a lot of time to talk about that one. It's about a month from now. But so let's move on over to another big fight that was announced. I know you love this guy, Francis Ngannou. He's announced to fight at UFC 215 in Edmonton against Junior Dos Santos. Here's a guy who's kind of had up and down going lately. He's 3-3 in his last 6 fights. His last fight he lost to Stipe Miocic in a title fight. And Ngannou's on a completely different level right now. The guy's on a bit of a hot streak. Defeated Andrei Arlovski last time in January. 10-1 overall. Has never lost in the UFC. Back-to-back Performance of the Night awards for him. And, this is big for Ngannou. Cain Velasquez, he's kind of been MIA since UFC 200. So if Ngannou's able to get a victory here, he might have earned himself a title shot against Stipe Miocic. What do you think about that?
For sure. I mean, I think Francis Ngannou for me is the biggest, rising star / prospect. I think he's almost kind of elevated himself past prospect status and into real contender. Yeah. And I think that this is an interesting fight with Junior Dos Santos. The reaction has been interesting to this announcement. You have a segment of people saying, well, wait, hold the phone here. Is Francis ready for the likes of a Junior Dos Santos? I mean, don't forget, guy might have been a little bit, win and loss the last few, but he's a former champion, knockout artist, power in both hands, great boxer, kind of the stuff that, Francis does. is Francis Ngannou ready for this test? Then you have another segment be like, okay, Junior Dos Santos coming off a knockout loss at UFC 211 to Stipe Miocic. I mean, it just happened, and he's going to turn around, 3 pay-per-views later, and take on Francis Ngannou, a guy that, by all accounts, is the most dangerous specimen on the planet. I know that that title belongs to Stipe Miocic, as baddest man on the planet, as a heavyweight champion, but this guy's power and striking just separate him. I've talked to him several times. I've heard stories about him and training with people. I talked to Uriah Hall here at the Performance Institute. Both of them have been spending time here, and they were kind of just going back and forth, just touching each other, just warming up, throwing a few punches, and he just ate a real small, soft jab from Francis Ngannou, and he was like, "Nope, I'm done." And that's the kind of power that this guy has, and for a guy like Junior who got knocked out in his last fight. This could spell trouble when he starts to eat these big punches from Francis.
I mean, would you say that Ngannou is kind of catching JDS at the right time? It feels like JDS is kind of past his prime. He's been up and down. Again, 3-3 in his last 6 fights. Meanwhile, Ngannou is kind of entering his prime. He can earn himself a big win on his resume here against a guy, again, might be catching him at the right time and then getting himself that title shot. So I think it's a smart move for him, and I honestly think early on, I know this fight's a long way away, but he's kind of hot right now. He's been knocking people out left and right. I kind of like him as the early favorite in my book. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. I have him as the favorite. I agree. It is a good time. The fight game is it's very unrelenting beast, if you will. It's Junior was having that run, and then he ran into Cain Velasquez. He beat him that first time, and then he had 2 tough losses to him. Rebounded, came back. Then he got knocked out by Alistair Overeem, came back, won. You remember that first fight with Stipe Miocic was a 5-round war. I mean, I think that took a lot out of him. So you're right. He's catching them they're at different stages of their career, but Francis is so confident. What amazes me about him is he doesn't see like fighters or names. He just sees a body. He just sees the next guy that he has to take out on his way. I mean, he grew up in Cameroon. He always envisioned himself moving over to the U.S. to chase his dreams, and it's something that he saw. And he was homeless at one point when he first moved to France and started to take up MMA. The guy is just like, he's seen things that he wants to accomplish, and he's accomplished them. And I'm not going to tell him that he's not. I talked to him yesterday for UFC.com, and he said Junior's time is over, and now it's my time. And you know what? The guy's calling out Cain Velasquez, Alistair Overeem, Junior Dos Santos. I kind of believe him.
Well, he's definitely a winner both inside and outside the octagon, the way you're talking about him. And one thing that's really stands out to me is, again, in the heavyweight division, any heavyweight fight, one punch can just end the fight, But this guy's gone out there, he's won 9 in a row. That's impressive, especially in that division. No matter who you're fighting, a fight can end at any second. So I'm really looking forward to that fight at UFC 215. But let's keep moving forward, Matt. Let's talk about UFC 213 for a second. It looks like this card is it was once very stacked, and now it's just names are dropping out of the picture. You okay there? You're gonna make it, Matt?
Yeah, it's got the allergies going or something today. I don't know.
Jeez. Anyway, so we have Donald Cowboy Cerrone out of the picture of UFC 213. He went on Instagram. He said he wasn't injured. It's just some blood infection. He said super bad infection in his blood, and he wants to take 7 days of IV, and he'll be back at it. Trying to reschedule it. Word is that he'll be fighting Lawler at UFC 214, which would even make that card even better, which is like, can UFC 214 can get any better? It's crazy. But now, what do you look at in 213? What do you do with this now, with this vacant spot in the main card?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything being discussed. Usually Dana, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, they come up with something really good usually. So I wouldn't worry about it. But, I'm not worried about this card. I mean, trust me, it's a bummer to lose this fight. Yeah. Everybody's been talking about Lawler versus Cerrone for it seems like a year now. Yeah. I mean, they were teasing it potentially at UFC 205 at Madison Square Garden. Robbie had to pull out of the fight as he continued to, make his comeback. But I'm thrilled with UFC 213. I mean, I think sometimes, like, I love the UFC motto. Obviously I live and breathe it. But sometimes it's nice to focus in on one fight, one or two fights. And for me, UFC 213 has two very
Yes.
important fights. Nunes versus Shevchenko at the top is the two best of at 135 pounds in the new, evolution of that division. We're in the second kind of iteration of the women's bantamweight division, and these are the two best, baddest on the planet. They're going to go at it again. Their first fight was great. That third round was spectacular. Shevchenko, after struggling the first two rounds, come back the way she did in the third. Now we have 5 rounds of that one. Sign me up. Then you got a very important fight. I mean, Yoel Romero, Robert Whittaker for the interim title. There's been a lot of, people not thrilled with Michael Bisping,
Yeah.
maybe not fighting the top contenders in this division.
You can
But
put me
these
in
are the
that
two,
camp.
without a doubt, top contenders in this division. This is an important fight. It may be for an interim title, but it gives us two things. It gives us the potential next number one contender for that title, and also it gives us 5 rounds. When you get an interim title fight, some people don't like it, but it gives us a 5-round fight in a co-main event spot that would have been 3 rounds. And for these two, could go past that 15-minute mark. So I'm focusing on that. You got Overeem versus Verdum 3. These two guys are fighting for their lives to stay in the thick of things at the heavyweight division. Anthony Pettis, back up to 155 pounds. I want to see how Showtime Pettis, a guy that was one of the hottest in the sport a couple years ago, he wants to bring himself back to life. Still a lot to like about this card.
Absolutely, I do agree with you. It's just, the only reason why I said that is you lose Cody Garbrandt and then now Cerrone. It kind of stinks with that, but I'm pretty sure both of those fights will happen in the near future as well. So who do you think this break, in terms of the Cerrone Lawler, there's going to be a little of a gap, assuming they do fight at 214. Who do you think the break will help more, Cerrone or Lawler?
I think this is going to be the same fight that it was always anticipated to be whenever it happens. I think I saw a headline yesterday, and I've not heard it, within our walls, but Dana said that he doesn't think that Cowboy will be ready for 214. So they're gonna wait, though. Dana said, to make that fight, which I think they should, because that fight is just all kinds of great. I'd like to see it as a main event, so we can get 5 rounds, maybe on a Fox show or FS1.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think whenever that fight happens, buckle up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got 2 really popular fighters, especially Cowboy. Big fan favorite type of fighter. Let's move on now back to UFC 214. I know we started at 214, then we went to 215, then went to 213. Let's go back to 214. Now we're bouncing all over the place. Cyborg has a new opponent as Megan Anderson withdrew due to, quote, personal reasons. And now Cyborg will be fighting Tanya Evinger from Invicta FC. She is the bantamweight champion in Invicta. So do you think this is a disadvantage for her to be fighting now at featherweight against Cyborg? Or is Cyborg going to win regardless who she fights in this at 214?
I don't think anybody has an advantage when they're standing across the octagon from Chris Cyborg.
No, I meant disadvantage. Do you think this is a disadvantage now she has to move up a weight class?
No, she's game, man. Like I didn't know a ton about Tanya Evinger before this fight was announced. I really studied up on her this week. I spoke to her before the announcement, and I'm really impressed with her confidence, her attitude. She says she's stepped up countless times, like 3 or 4 times in Invicta. At a chance to fight Cyborg. Cyborg was the 145-pound Invicta champ for a long time. When she lost an opponent, she always said she would step up, fight her. It never materialized. She has a real dirty, grinding fight style. I mean, she's not really necessarily, a great fighter at any particular skill. She's just a real, game fighter, somebody that's going to come in, try to take the fight to the ground, where that's her world. She's a wrestler. She was a college wrestler. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see. Most of the time, it's the same type of thing with Woodley. Against Cyborg, you don't want to get too close. I feel like the people that will have the most success against her, maybe a fighter like Holly Holm, who likes to sit on the outside, use her reach, kind of like, be the matador and kind of bring Chris Cyborg to her and just pepper her with shots. Evinger likes to get in your face and get dirty. She's going to want to get in there, try to get a single or double leg takedown, get this fight to the ground. Chris obviously has the jiu-jitsu. We haven't had to see a ton of it because she's so great standing up. But I think it's a better matchup for fans, and let me tell you why. I think Megan Anderson at 8-2, only 10 fights professionally, we're rushing her along a little bit. She's still young in the sport. She's still evolving. Kudos to her for wanting to fight Cyborg. She's such a gamer too. I love her attitude. I mean, she won the Invicta title and then came out and said, I'm coming for that UFC belt. She's got a lot of confidence, and I love that. But for Evinger, she's on a 10-fight win streak. She brings over 20 professional fights in this fight. She's going to be, she's prepared for this. She's been preparing to fight Cyborg, and I think it's let Megan kind of, maybe take a couple more fights, have that 145 fight down the line, give us Evinger Cyborg now. I like the fight.
Yeah, Evinger hasn't lost since 2011 when she lost to Sarah McMahon. It'll be interesting. She told MMA Fighting, quote, I think I'm Cyborg's biggest challenge to date. I'm not taking anything away from any of them other girls. All of them are good in their own right. It's just my style anyway. I think it would be the toughest challenge for her. So definitely a confident woman. It'll be an interesting fight. It's UFC 214. I'm sure Cyborg's going to be the heavy favorite in this one. So if there is an upset, it'll be one for the ages. Anyway, let's move forward now to what happened last weekend in Oklahoma. Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa. Interesting finish, controversial ending as Lee had Chiesa in a choke, and Chiesa didn't tap out, but the referee called it a fight, ended it. Dana White was not happy afterwards. He went on social media, on Instagram, and said about the referee, quote, this guy is more concerned with doing this dumb heart BS than reffing the fight. Referencing the referee who apparently does a little heart with his hands before every fight. He went on to say, nobody gives a bleep that you can make a heart with your hands like a 12-year-old girl. They want you to pay attention to what's going on in the fight and do your job. What were your thoughts when you saw that finish to the fight?
The reaction to everybody from the finish just goes to show how important this fight was for both of these guys. You didn't want it. You didn't want any controversy for both of them. You didn't want it for Chiesa because he didn't actually tap, and you didn't want it for Lee, who looked phenomenal and finished. Basically, was going to look like he was going to finish him in the first round. So you hate to have a fight end like that. The more time that has gone by and the more I've looked at it, it's not. I don't have as big of an issue with it. It was recorded as a technical submission, which. The way I've been explained, a referee can stop before a person taps if they feel like they're not intelligently defending themselves. So if he thought that he was about to go to sleep anyway and he'd made that decision, I don't know if that was actually what happened, but Kevin Lee said it best. He was getting the better of him. He was really beating him up. He had his back. He had that body triangle locked in, and that choke was tight. I mean, he was going to sleep. I got to tell you, the bigger controversy for me is Kevin had his back, maybe like a minute earlier, 45 seconds earlier, and landed two 12-6 elbows that cut Chiesa on the top of the head, which I talked to our VP of Regulatory Affairs, Mark Ratner, about this, and those were illegal elbows. The fight, he should have been warning. The fight should have been stopped there, potentially even stood up because those were illegal elbows. So the controversy that really mattered might have been a little bit earlier in that fight. That's
interesting you bring that up. I hadn't heard that. Thank you, Matt, for that incredible insight. But what are your thoughts on a couple fights prior to the Chiesa-Lee fight? You had Kish and Herrig fighting, and there was like a choke in that fight, but they waited a long time. Nobody stopped the fight there or anything. I think that the bigger controversy was that the lack of consistency there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you love to give fighters a chance. I mean, there's so much on the line for these guys and ladies that, they're training 2-3 months for one moment. I think we talked about this last week. And you hate to take an opportunity away from them if they could get out of a situation like Justine Kish showed she was able to do. But I never have a problem with a referee kind of erring on the side of caution when it comes to fighter safety, because it's a real dangerous sport. So I mean, if it's a bad example, and you're right, like it's a good juxtaposition, like Justine Kish. I mean, that choke was on there for like 20 seconds or something. It was crazy. So I don't think there's any right answer. I think it was a mistake. I think Yamasaki made a mistake. I think people, Michael Chiesa has every right to be mad about it if he felt like he could get out of the hold, but. These kind of things happen in sports. Refs miss calls. It's a shame.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen a lot of it this year. different types of officiating bodies. You know, you had the Mousasi Weidman fight, and then you had the debacle at UFC 208 with Jermaine Durandamy and Holly Holm. I just feel like it's been more prevalent lately. Hopefully these officials can clean it up. Anyway, let's move forward to the fight everyone's talking about, boxing match, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor. One thing I wanted to talk about on this, Matt, is just the line movement, the odds movement from November 17 till June 27. November 17th, this was basically right after McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez. He was a plus 950 underdog. Mayweather was a minus 2250 favorite. Since then, again, nothing has happened. The only thing that's happened since then was the fight has been announced. The line has shifted to Mayweather minus 600, McGregor plus 400. So this line, so much money is going in on McGregor. And I think it's all Conor just making people believe that he actually might have a shot on this. What is it about this guy that just can sell himself so well? That we have all these people across the entire country putting money on this guy, believing that, but there's a chance that in this first round, McGregor might get this knockout. He's the ultimate pitchman. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a gambling expert by any means, but if you're going to, you got the NCAA tournament or, the Kentucky Derby coming up, what are you going to put your money on? I mean, really, if you're a casual fan just like starting this stuff, you're gonna put your money on the long shot. And I think, a lot of money is coming in on Conor. A lot of people like Conor McGregor. I mean, why is this fight happening to begin with? People love this guy. They love his story. They love everything about who he is, his wit, his social media presence, his larger than life persona. People just love it and they gravitate towards it. So I think, I think that there's also an element of people that maybe don't love Floyd Mayweather for whatever reason. So you combine those elements together, and a lot of money is coming in on Conor. I think that a lot of people, I think this fight was made because of the intrigue of a guy that talks so much and is backed up so much in his career. Can he actually back up this, on another planet, crazy prediction of knocking out the best boxer to ever live? It's almost like, yeah, man, I mean, if he believes that much, I mean, I'll throw a couple bucks on it.
It's what shocks me the most is, okay, this is via bestfightodds.com, and all those McGregor-Mayweather odds I gave are from oddshark.com. And this is also from OddsShark. Cyborg, in her career since 2010, she has never been a 3-digit favorite. She's always been a 4-digit favorite, which means minus 1,000 or more. Always, since 2010. So you're telling me the chances of in a UFC, in an octagon, in a MMA match, one of Cyborg's opponents had a less of a chance to beat Cyborg in the same sport than Conor does beating Mayweather in a boxing match? That doesn't add up to me, because you're seeing a transitional sports moment here with McGregor going and fighting in the ring rather than the octagon. It just doesn't add up. So I think it's just the time. Bet the rent, go to your bank account, take everything out, put it on Mayweather, because it just seems like a sure thing to me. I know that the McGregor has that shot, whatever. I just don't know. I just don't see it happening. But
there's questions surrounding Mayweather, though. When you step away from the game for the amount of time that he stepped away from the game for, he can put out all of these workout videos that he wants, and they're great, and he's great. But, the fastball, you lose miles per hour on the fastball as time goes on. And what has made Floyd Mayweather so spectacular is his quickness and his just second to none ability to not take damage. Well, why did he retire in the first place? He's 49-0, nobody was touching him. Was he slowing down at that point? And add 2 years onto that.
Yeah.
With no fights. So just from that perspective, you're going to be you might be a little off your game coming back. And I'm wondering if people add that to, Conor's power, the power that he brings into this fight. Listen, I'm not sitting here saying that Conor's going to win. I'm just trying to explain to you why I think maybe people are more apt to throw a lot of money. I think this is a unique situation. Like, what you're getting with Chris Cyborg every time she comes into the octagon. There's been nobody. She lost her first fight by submission when she was coming over to MMA from Muay Thai. Since then, she has been nobody's even come close to beating her.
Yeah.
So that's why those odds are so crazy. Like Floyd Mayweather has been a decision machine for the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's true. I just think, the line movement. I wonder if it'll be even closer by the time the fight actually happens. It's crazy to me.
I could see a lot of big money. Again, I'm not an expert, but I could see a lot of big money coming in on Floyd as we move more toward the fight.
This fight really reminds me of Antonio Gates. Let's say Antonio Gates, who was a great basketball player in high school, deciding to go one-on-one against Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time in his sport. I mean, come on. Jordan's been away from the game for 15 years. He will still win that one-on-one battle against Antonio Gates.
That's a horrible comparison. I love where you're going with
I love it. I think it's an excellent comparison because Antonio Gates is one of the greatest tight ends of all time, the same way McGregor is one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time.
Okay, he's one of the greatest tight ends in a sport where there's 11 positions. They don't even do remotely the same things.
Exactly.
Like so you look
exactly
at
my point.
Floyd, they both punch each other. Gates catches footballs. That's what he's great at. Michael Jordan shoots basketballs. That's what he's great at. Two completely different things. His basketball experience is irrelevant. I played Little League baseball as a kid. That doesn't mean that I should go, play professional baseball. You know what I mean? Like, I just think they're different things. I like where you're going though, Andre. I'm not gonna rain on your parade too much. We have 2 months to still talk about this. Let's keep moving forward. I just want real quick, Justine Kish, Felice Herrig, this past Saturday. Seems like Kish had some gastrointestinal issues in the octagon. As I think we have some photos here we can pull up as she literally pooped herself in the octagon. She was a good sport about it afterwards. Went on social media and said, poop happens. And I love how the referee just walking all over it in the middle of the fight. Looks like he didn't see what was going on. Just puts his foot on it. It's a little nasty, but what were your thoughts when you saw that? It's just, have you ever pooped somewhere in an embarrassing place? Have you ever had to go? I didn't even notice it actually until I started seeing the pictures.
Same here
on the internet. And I thought all parties involved handled it really well. I thought Felice Herrig, like, wow, what a class act to not mention it, to not, she went to the back and was asked a question about it, and she said, I don't think that it's very professional to talk about that. I think everybody, like, listen, stuff does happen. You know what I mean? Like, she was literally, her entire body was cut off from oxygen for probably about 20 seconds. It would surprise me more if that didn't happen. So, things happen. It's a fight. It's a sport. I have more power to her. Clean, cut, and dry.
Yeah, more power to her. Listen, it's a natural human thing to happen to all of us. Everyone's been there. I have no problem with it. More power to her. I like her even more for that. And I like the way she handled it. I thought it was funny. And I like the way Felice Herrig handled it too. She understands that it could be an embarrassing moment and said, if that was me, I would have never came out of my, I would have, shut everything off. I would have been so embarrassed. So, Matt, it's okay. I like her more for it.
It might have been embarrassing for Justine, but probably not as embarrassed as probably Mario Yamasaki was 2 fights later. Oh.
Yeah. It's been it was quite a week in the UFC with all the announced fights, and we had a good card last week that I was kind of looking down upon at first, and then you sold it to me, and I enjoyed it. It was a great card. You got some good fights. And next up is UFC 213. I can't believe it's a week and a half away. We're going to see each other in Las Vegas. Taking the show on the road in Sin City. It'll be fun, Matt. So I'll see you there next week. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, we'll show you around the new campus. It'll be a fun time.
That'll be great.